Rock stars don't just break records, they break the laws of logic, sanity, and sometimes actual laws. From snorting the unthinkable to setting themselves on fire. These stories are so wild they sound like myths, but they're 100% real. Join us as we take a look at 10 rock star stories you won't believe. Number 10. Ozzy Osbourne bites the head off a bat. Most rock stars pretend to be wild, but Ozzy Osbourne was a completely different case. This was not pretending. He made insanity a full-time job. It was January 20th, 1982. Just another night on the Diary of a Madman tour. Ozzy was in his full Prince of Darkness mode, dressed in his signature gothic robes, belting out anthems to a packed arena in Des Moines, Iowa. Fans had already come to expect wild antics from him, but no one, not even Ozzy, was prepared for what happened next. A fan, likely trying to up the chaos factor, threw a live bat onto the stage. Whether it was brought in as a prank or simply a tragic victim of rock and roll history, we'll never know. But what we do know is that Ozzy, thinking it was a rubber prop, did something completely shocking. He bit its head off, and then it moved. In that split second, Ozzy realized two things. One, the bat had not been plastic, and two, he had just earned himself a one-way ticket to the emergency room. Backstage, his teams rushed him to the hospital, where doctors immediately began a painful, weeks-long series of rabies shots straight to the stomach. Years later, he admits, it tasted like the worst thing imaginable. But if you think that's bad, just wait until you hear the wild story about the time Ace Frehley got a little too adventurous with a bottle of, something you definitely shouldn't drink. Number 9. Ace Frehley chugged a bottle of Perfume. You may have heard stories of alcoholics resorting to desperate measures. Chugging mouthwash, downing cooking wine, even swiping hand sanitizer. But Kiss guitarist Ace Frehley, he took it a step further. One night, Ace and his bandmates were packed into a limousine celebrating like rock stars tend to do. There was just one problem. They had run out of alcohol. Frehley, already feeling the itch for another drink, started looking around for anything that could get him buzzed. That's when someone casually mentioned, Perfume has a really high alcohol content. Ace didn't hesitate. He grabbed the nearest bottle, popped the cap, and guzzled it down in one massive gulp. No chasers, no second thoughts. Just straight up liquid cologne burning its way down his throat. The taste? Probably horrific. But his breath was no doubt fantastic. That wasn't the only time rock stars experimented with questionable substances. But what happens when those substances include the remains of your own father? Well, let's ask Keith Richards. Number 8. Keith Richards snorted his dad's ashes. Rock stars have done a lot of questionable things, but Keith Richards took things to a level no one saw coming. In his 2010 autobiography, The Rolling Stones guitarist casually dropped one of the most unhinged rock star confessions of all time. He once snorted his father's cremated ashes. According to Keith, when his father Bert passed away in 2002, his ashes were given to him in an urn. Most people would place them on a shelf, maybe scatter them in a meaningful location. Keith? He decided to mix them with cocaine and snort them straight up his nose. His reasoning? He wouldn't have cared. It went down pretty well, and I'm still alive. Naturally, the media lost their minds. Fans were horrified. Tabloids ran headlines calling him a grave snorting lunatic. And even other rock stars were like, dude, what? Keith later tried to downplay it, claiming, I did snort my dad's ashes, but I couldn't resist having a little taste. Which doesn't really make it better. Well, Keith Richards is definitely up the weird alley. Our next entry is a drummer who turned blowing up hotel toilets into a hobby. Number 7. Keith Moon repeatedly bombed hotel toilets. What happened to trashing hotel rooms? Keith Moon seemed to be taking things further by waging war on plumbing. The Who's legendary drummer was an unstoppable force of chaos, and his favorite target? Hotel bathrooms, specifically the toilets. Moon had a habit of carrying cherry bombs, M80s, and full-on sticks of dynamite with him on tour. Why? Because he thought it was hilarious to flush them down the toilet and watch the explosion destroy everything in sight. Hotels across America probably lived in fear of Keith Moon. He caused so much destruction that it estimated he damaged about $500,000 worth of toilets. This man turned demolition into a personality trait. Sometimes the chaos didn't just affect the plumbing. It spilled over onto others. Just ask Izzy Stradlin, who got arrested for urinating in the aisle of a commercial airplane. Number 6. Izzy Stradlin was arrested for peeing in the aisle of an airplane. Being in Guns N' Roses meant living by one rule: pure, unapologetic chaos. And rhythm guitarist Izzy Stradlin, he took that to heart, especially when it came to total disregard for public restrooms. It was 1989 and Guns N' Roses were at their peak, selling out arenas, partying like maniacs, and making headlines for all the wrong reasons. On a flight from Indianapolis to Los Angeles, Stradlin had a bit too much to drink when nature called. The problem? Someone was already in the lavatory. Most people would just wait their turn. But Izzy Stradlin, not exactly a patient guy. So instead of holding it like a normal person, he stood up, unzipped, and urinated right there in the aisle, in front of a plane full of horrified passengers. By the time the plane landed, federal agents were waiting. Izzy was arrested immediately and charged with public indecency. After that incident, Stradlin somehow avoided getting banned from flying entirely. Stradlin might have been reckless, gross even, but let's talk about Eddie Van Halen, who once drove a literal military assault vehicle through Beverly Hills. Number 5. Eddie Van Halen drove a military assault vehicle through Beverly Hills for his guitar. Rock feuds are nothing new, but rarely has a musician gone full action movie over a minor inconvenience. Eddie Van Halen, he took things to a military-grade level. It all started in the early 2000s, when Eddie was introduced to Limp Bizkit frontman Fred Durst. The two weren't exactly musical soulmates, but they agreed to have a jam session at Durst's home. According to reports, some of the people at the jam session started using illicit substances, which Eddie wanted no part of. So he did what any rational person would do. He walked out immediately, leaving his gear behind. The next day he tried to get it back. He called Durst, texted, waited, nothing. Durst ghosted him. Now most people might send another text, maybe swing by to talk it out. Not Eddie Van Halen. After 24 hours of being ignored, he snapped. He hopped into an actual military assault vehicle, one he had bought from a military auction, because of course he did, and drove it straight through Los Angeles into Beverly Hills and parked it on Durst's lawn. And then he got out shirtless, his hair tied in a samurai-style bun, wearing combat boots held together by duct tape, and jeans secured with a piece of rope. Oh, and one more thing, he was holding a gun. Eddie took his guitars, got back into his illegal assault vehicle, and drove out like it was another Tuesday. The whole thing sounds like a scene from Mad Max. Speaking of extreme, let's take a look at the time Jimi Hendrix literally set his guitar on fire. Number 4. Jimi Hendrix set his guitar on fire, and nearly himself too. It was the 1967 Monterey Pop Festival, and Hendrix was on a mission. See, The Who had just gone on before him, ending their set by smashing their instruments to pieces. Jimmy saw that and went, "Oh yeah, watch this." As he wrapped up his final song, he dropped to his knees, grabbed his Stratocaster and drowned it in lighter fluid. Then he lit a match and boom, flames shot up. The crowd erupted. The camera flashes exploded like fireworks. But here's the part most people don't know. Hendrix accidentally set himself on fire too. The second the flames hit, they licked up his arms, and for a moment, Jimmy himself was burning. Did he panic? Nope, he just kept going, waving his hands over the fire like he was performing some demonic voodoo ritual, all while his own skin was heating up. He had to frantically pat himself down before finally smashing the guitar to bits and tossing the wreckage into the crowd. The stunt instantly became one of the most iconic moments in rock history. And the best part? It wasn't even planned. Our next entry takes things to a new level, with a bassist who decided to play a show completely naked and got arrested for it. Number 3. Flea played a concert fully naked. Most musicians focus on pushing boundaries, but Flea, he straight up ignored them, along with any concept of clothing. It was 1993, and the Red Hot Chili Peppers were playing a show in Los Angeles. Flea, known for his wild stage antics, decided that tonight was the night to go full-on primal mode. So what did he do? He walked on stage, completely 100% naked. No pants, no underwear, nothing. Now, Flea had a history of performing with just a sock covering his goods, but this time he didn't even bother with that. Halfway through the set, he even removed the sock and just kept going. By the time the show ended, police were waiting for him backstage. Flea was immediately arrested for indecent exposure, making the night one of the most bizarre, chaotic, and let's be real, on-brand moments in RHCP history. Number 2. James Brown held up an insurance company over a toilet. We can all agree that James Brown was godfather of soul, and he was also the godfather of completely unhinged, rock star level antics. And hey, if he's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, we're definitely including him in this list. Case in point, the time he stormed into an insurance office with a shotgun, all because someone allegedly used his toilet. It was 1988, and Brown was in Augusta, Georgia, where he owned an office building. He had a very strict policy about his personal restroom. Nobody touches it but James. So when he suspected someone had violated that sacred rule, he lost it. He grabbed a shotgun, hopped into his pickup truck, and drove straight to the insurance seminar happening inside his building. He kicked down the door, armed and furious, demanding to know who used his bathroom. What followed was a wild police chase across state lines, with Brown blazing through Georgia and South Carolina at 90 miles per hour, swerving all over the road while cops desperately tried to stop him. When the dust settled, James Brown was hit with multiple charges, including assault, drug possession, and resisting arrest. But even in court, he never quite explained why he snapped over a toilet. Legend? Absolutely. Unhinged? Without question. Finally, to top this video with the cherry on top, we'll be taking a look at the time Tony Iommi pulled a prank on his drummer. Number 1. Tony Iommi pulled a prank on Bill Ward and set him on fire. Black Sabbath lived and breathed heavy metal. Chaos, destruction, and insanity followed them everywhere, and their backstage pranks absolutely demented. At the heart of it all was Tony Iommi, the band's legendary guitarist and resident troublemaker. His favorite target? Drummer Bill Ward, who for some reason kept agreeing to be pranked. One of his favorite games was simple. Iommi would douse Ward in rubbing alcohol, light a match, and watch the flames burn off in a harmless flash. Dumb? Yes. Dangerous? Absolutely. But then one night, it went horribly wrong. The band was goofing off in the studio with producer Martin Birch when Iommi grabbed a bottle of rubbing alcohol and dumped it over Ward and lit a match. Normally, the alcohol would burn off instantly, but this time, it soaked into Ward's clothes. The second the flames hit, whoosh, he erupted in a fireball. Ward collapsed, screaming in agony, rolling on the floor to try and put himself out. But Iommi, he thought Ward was playing along, so instead of helping, he poured even more alcohol on him. Everyone watched in horror as Ward writhed and screamed, his skin burning. Finally, reality slapped Iommi in the face. This wasn't a joke. They called an ambulance immediately, and Ward was rushed to the hospital with severe burns. And there you have it. 10 absolutely insane rock stories that sound fake but are 100% real. Which one shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments down below. And if you love wild rock history, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell, because we got plenty more insane stories coming your way.